Emptying out those closets? Donating old clothing? If you have gently used items that you're not using anymore, donate them to St. Vinny's thrift stores. Y'all, the money generated from your donated goods at St. Vinny's helps feed the hungry, clothe the vulnerable, and provide essential medicine to the uninsured. All your donations will stay right here in Dane County. Call St. Vinny's at 608-278-2920, extension 1 to schedule your free home pickup today. Hey, it's your host, Bianca, popping in to tell you about our new CityCast Madison Neighbors program. I know you've heard us talk about membership before, and many of you are already part of it. Well, it's got a new name. We're calling it CityCast Madison Neighbors because we've learned that people who support CityCast Madison are people who care deeply about the city and want to make it better. They're just the kind of neighbors this city needs. We're also adding benefits. CityCast Madison neighbors still have access to ad-free podcast listening and an exclusive weekly local events preview. But now you also get regular events like happy hours with other CityCast Madison neighbors, local volunteering meetups, and other members-only events where we explore and better our city together. And you get to shout out a local business or nonprofit you love on the show and in the Madison Minutes newsletter. For $10 a month, you can become a CityCast Madison neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. We couldn't make the show without people like you supporting it, and we're so excited for you to be a part of it. Thanks a million. Today on CityCast Madison. Spring cleaning and yard work has home improvement on my mind. So we're bringing back one of my all-time favorite conversations with a stellar guest, Mercury Stardust, aka the Trans Handyman, a professional home maintenance technician who's got tips on how to get your home in shape for spring. Mercury helps empower everyone to tackle those projects in your apartment and home that need some TLC. And hey, I want to underscore that we here on CityCast Madison get to bring you these wonderful conversations with local talent like Mercury because of our members. These pro home maintenance tips you're getting are made possible by our CityCast Madison neighbors. I probably don't have to tell you this because it's just the air we breathe these days, but the world is full of uncertainty and fractiousness, so being connected to your neighbors today is critical. It's time to start sharing our sugar and eggs again, folks. Looking out for one another. We need that. And after all, Madisonians are the best neighbors. We're almost to the end of our spring membership campaign, and we need 40 more people to sign up to join our program. We really want to hit our goal, so if you haven't already joined us, and for those of you who have, we see you and thank you. Would you be my neighbor? Go to membership.citycast.fm to be a part of it. That's membership.citycast.fm. And when you become a CityCast Madison neighbor, to thank you for supporting our show, we'll send you an adorable CityCast Neighbors mug, invite you to members-only events, and so much more. So sign up to support us today. Go to membership.citycast.fm to help us keep making this content you love. Alrighty, let's hit it. It's Wednesday, April 30th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Mercury Stardust, you Madison legend. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm so stoked.
Well, thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I listen to you guys all the time.
That blows my mind, first off. And right now I'm looking at you and you're in an incredible studio setup that you built yourself.
Yeah.
Folks can't see it, but it's giving me Mr. Rogers, like, tropical fairy dust magic. I'm blown away. I'm like, this is the real deal.
I call this my Moose Lodge. So I like that you give it my Mr. Rogers vibe. Yeah, I always say that I'm like Miss Frizzle meets Mr. Rogers, kind of. That whimsical space dust. With that wholesome, character from the '70s.
Yes, I put a little space dust on my face just to talk to you. So you have 2.6 million followers on TikTok, which is incredible. You've obviously struck a nerve. Can you tell us, why make home repair content?
It all happened by accident. I was working as a maintenance technician for a property management company here in tropical Madison, Wisconsin. And I decided to make a video one night helping someone with a ratchet strap and how to learn how to use a ratchet strap. And that video went viral. And that taught me that people really like the way that I explain things. And I just leaned into it. And who would have thought that a lot of people who want to learn from me are from the LGBTQIA community and are single moms who are on their own for the first time. And also a lot of widows. A lot of widows follow me. And that's been an eye-opening experience seeing, traveling the country with my book tour and meeting so many women who are on their own for the first time after 20, 30, 40 years. And that's just an honor to be able to be that person to help them in those moments.
Yes. And I picked up your book from a room of one's own over in Atwood, just feeling like, God, I need to figure out how to do this by myself. I want to feel empowered. And obviously you had these skills before starting the show. And I read that you learned a lot about home repair while growing up with your dad. When did the paths of sharing home repair tips and LGBTQIA plus advocacy intersect?
Well, when I was growing up in a northern town in Wisconsin, which there was more cows on the town than there were people. So,
yes.
Strangely enough, I like the cows better. So, we had a very much whatever you had on the farm is what you had to fix. We didn't have money to do much, So there was very much this mindset of you got to troubleshoot and you got to troubleshoot with whatever you got. You got duct tape and toothpaste. Well, that's what we're using today. So my mentality about doing a lot with very little started very early on, and I didn't really get along with my pa about any of this stuff. My dad was very you need to do it this way because this is what men do, and for obvious reasons, that didn't always gel with me. So we always had a very much of a friction. But then as I was getting older, I started realizing that my dad would fix things in the very traditional way, and I would always fix things in the most untraditional way. And that became kind of like an asset to me. It made me realize early on the way that I fixed things was not wrong. It was just very different. And because you would have problems that would sometimes be only fixed by my dad or only fixed by me, it taught me that sometimes some problems only can be solved by certain ways and other problems can only be solved by other ways. And that difference, that fundamental understanding of how things function really carried onwards when I grew up and I realized that every single person is different. Every single person is a little bit different than the next, and it's okay to be that. My dad doesn't necessarily agree with that mentality, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it helped me because the way I was treated growing up, it helped me translate all of the things I know to people who were afraid to learn these things.
Yes, and I count myself among them. And it almost sounds like the concept of queering something, kind of doing something. Yeah, literally.
I always say that I'm like a gay Robin Hood. I took all this knowledge from those who try to gatekeep it sometimes, and I went, yay, you get a wrench,
Oh my God, you are a delight. And you have a background in theater and cabaret, right? So that's kind of influenced, I imagine, everything that you're doing and bringing to us good folks.
I went to college at Edgewood College here in tropical Madison, Wisconsin.
Balmy Madison.
I got my degree in theatrical production. So I was on stage, but it was also off stage a lot. I did a lot of sets and a lot of lights and a lot of sounds. And I learned from an amazing guy named Chris Dunham, who's still the set designer and everything for Edgewood College. So it was such a wild experience to do all that. But I met people who worked at Electronic Theater Controls, which is the largest manufacturer of theatrical lighting just outside of Madison in Middleton. And my first maintenance job ever was with Electronic Theater Controls. And I got a maintenance job, worked in the maintenance department for 10 years. And that's how I cut my teeth on this entire industry.
Wow. So you've got the chops in a widespread way, truly, and you're approaching home repair with love. Can you explain the Mercury method?
Yes, the Mercury method is basically troubleshooting 101, right? It boils it down to very simple ideas about isolating it. Like anytime we come into a problem, sometimes it's overwhelming. And when we look at a problem, it can be like, oh no, I don't know where to start. Well, all we got to do is isolate the problem. Once we isolate it, then we can kind of chip away at all the next steps. You isolate and then you try to tinker with it. And then you move on to, wonderful steps such as like make sure that you do it with safety, make sure that you're really mindful when you're working on these projects and you use safety first. And then also make sure that you take breaths between each moment because you're not going to fix it the first time because I don't.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe.
That's basically all that is just, isolate the problem and then grow from each step that you go through.
And there's also like a compassion component to how you're approaching. At least that's what I've gathered from your videos, that just like probably doesn't help yourself to beat yourself up. This is almost like life advice, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, when we were designing the book, we were talking a lot about the emotional resets that are in every single chapter of the book. And a lot of it has to just do with the fact that I knew what it was like to like get something wrong and then feel like poop the rest of the day,
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that people didn't feel like poop, that they felt a little bit more sparkly and magical afterwards, because that's how you learn. You'll learn things by making a bold choice and then quickly realizing that bold choice was pretty stupid. But you just can't fix it. You just can't do it. One of the biggest things I learned on a job site was my first 2 years working at Electronic Theater Controls. I had this amazing manager by the name of Dale Fargen. And Dale was he was a good old construction boy. He worked in construction for 40 years. He had a bad back to prove it. And he was just the kindest man I've ever met in my entire life. But when he was mad at me about something, boy, was he mad at me about something. So we were working on a project outside, and I had to take all these screws out of the ground, and then I had to put in new screws for whatever reason. And as I was putting in the new screws, I cross-threaded them. And I thought, instead of actually doing the proper thing, which taking them out and then putting them back in a straight way, I can't really do anything straight. I thought that was futile. So I got a big old extension handle for my ratchet strap, and I just went for it. I snapped the heads off of each one of those screws. I think it was 14 out of the 20. And I went and got Dale after I put myself in such a terrible position that I needed to get help. And Dale looked at me and said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Why? I didn't want to look stupid." And Dale looked at me and said, "Do you think I think you're not stupid now?" And that stuck with me the rest of my life. That I think about that constantly. Yet we're so afraid to ask for help because we're so afraid of looking silly that in honesty, we look way more silly later on.
It's so true. Just like trying to avoid the shame and embarrassment. And then it's like, well, you could have maybe saved 2 hours or maybe 30 hours, whatever, depending on how big the project is. Yeah. That's incredible. And, in your book, you're that's what you're doing. You're trying to help folks out. And you really hit a lot of different types of common repairs. What do you say are the most common repairs that a renter might face, and maybe some ways to address them?
I would say a garbage disposal is like right up there. A garbage disposal,
you
especially
hit mine right off the bat. That's why.
I would say that people always think garbage disposals are so difficult because they have blades and they move, and it's kind of like that like creepy, sand dune thing from Star Wars, Yeah. It doesn't look appealing, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I always tell people that one of the best things that they can do with that is take a breath and then look underneath the sink itself. And then you should see there's two options. Either it is plugged directly into it, or it's hardwired into the electrical outlet itself. If it's plugged in, just unplug it. Okay? That's the first thing you want to do is isolate that power, make sure it's not going to come on. And then if it's hardwired in, you just go and just flip off the breakers, right? If you don't know what breaker, flip them all off. Better safe than sorry.
Down.
Yeah, shut it down. And then you're going to want to go underneath it and see if there is like a little red dot right underneath the actual garbage disposal. That's like not technically a fuse switch, but it's kind of like a fuse switch. And that button will pop when it is overheating and causing the machine to like not have a good day. So in order for it to have a good day again, you need to push that back in.
I wish I had a button.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we overheat and we just like switch on? And then right in the middle is a little bit of an Allen key hole. And that Allen key hole is actually where all of the blades are connected to. So all the blades are centralized to this one little hole underneath the garbage disposal, and they get seized up. So if you put an Allen key that fits that hole, usually a 1/4 inch, and you just throw it up in that hole and you turn it left and right, just 180 both ways, then that's going to usually do the problem. If there is anything that's lodged in there, this will be a great time to get a needle nose pliers or some type of claw or even a magnet if you're lucky, and reach up in there and grab it before you turn it back on. But that's it. Those are the 3 things that you do, and usually one of those things, if not all of those things, solves the problem.
Seduction, danger, and eternal consequences. Join Madison Opera for Mozart's Don Giovanni, a legendary classic that has thrilled and scandalized audiences from its first note to its last for centuries. According to his not-so-little black book, Don Giovanni has seduced thousands of women across Europe. Over the course of a dramatic few days, his misadventures come back to literally haunt him, as Mozart's brilliant score whirls people in and out of the Don's mist. This weekend only, take your seat in Overture Hall and experience captivating drama and sensational music in this enthralling masterpiece. You only have 2 chances to see Don Giovanni, so join in the excitement of opening night on Friday, May 2nd at 7:30 p.m. Or treat yourself to the Sunday matinee on May 4th at 2:30 p.m. What better way to liven up spring than with riveting scandal, opulent and deadly dinner parties, and supernatural revenge? Tickets start at just $20, so get yours today at madisonopera.org. Remember those fun nights back in the day at summer camp? Ready to make more memories? Camp Aldo is the adult summer camp event of the season, held on Saturday, July 12th from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center, located at 330 Femright Drive in Monona, Wisconsin. Camp Aldo is an incredibly fun day that supports kids' outdoor nature programs in Dane County. Expect rocket launches, tie-dye, friendship bracelet making, and other ridiculously fun competitions, like an additional ultimate relay that will have you reminiscing about your own camp days. And there are provisions. Tickets include unlimited locally brewed beverages and a reusable event cup. In other words, free beer. And food trucks will also be on site. There's a suggested donation of $60 that gets you into the event with the cup and the beer. So don't miss out. Sign up for Camp Aldo today. Reserve your tickets at aldoleopoldnaturecenter.org. Hey, it's your host, Bianca, popping in to tell you about our new CityCast Madison Neighbors program. I know you've heard us talk about membership before, and many of you are already part of it. Well, it's got a new name. We're calling it CityCast Madison Neighbors because we've learned that people who support CityCast Madison are people who care deeply about the city and want to make it better. They're just the kind of neighbors this city needs. We're also adding benefits. CityCast Madison Neighbors still have access to ad-free podcast listening and an exclusive weekly local events preview. But now you also get regular events like happy hours with other CityCast Madison neighbors, local volunteering meetups, and other members-only events where we explore and better our city together. And you get to shout out a local business or nonprofit you love on the show and in the Madison Minutes newsletter. For $10 a month, you can become a CityCast Madison neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. We couldn't make the show without people like you supporting it, and we're so excited for you to be a part of it. Thanks a million. I just got back from a wonderful vacation, and I was incredibly delighted to see how many new neighbors we have. Saw some familiar names in there. Thank you to friends from the past and present who are choosing to support me and our team. It made me so happy, and I want to give a shout out to a few more folks who just joined the CityCast Madison neighborhood. So thank you to Kathy M., Moses M., Sarah W., and Megan L. You're the best. Megan says she is, quote, grateful for the daily dose of positivity, news, and insider info delivered through CityCast Madison and Madison Minutes. I appreciate your expansive approach to storytelling and all of the unique insights you share about Madison and the people and places who make up our city. Keep up the wonderful work, and thank you. Thank you so much for that note, Megan. And hey, if you out there are like Megan and appreciate the shows like the one you're listening to right now, go to membership.citycast.fm and become a member today. Join our neighborhood, our squad, and hey, you'll get a free mug. That's at membership.citycast.fm. Well, while we're talking about faucets, we have a question from Haley S., our executive producer.
Okay, I see why you interview me, just for this question.
How the F do I protect my faucets and appliances from Madison's hard water?
Oh, man, that's such a good question. You know, Madison has just notorious hard water. Like, it is absolutely a big pain in the boot. You know, I would say that one of the best ways, sure, there's going to be products out there that are way more lime resistant, right? You know, or calcium resistant, right? Those products are great. We love them. They're always so stupidly expensive. And most of the time, the best way to do it is just clean your stuff. You know, you got to clean it regularly and often. And they will make products that will have a little bit of a buffer between the actual material that you have, right, and then the actual lime itself. So they make these like Lime Away products that I really like a lot. We used them a lot when we were doing maintenance in a property. Yeah, so that would be my first thing I would tell you. The second thing is you get what you pay for. When it comes to faucets itself, if you got, a cheaper Moen or a cheaper Delta, you get those cheaper products, right? They get eat away pretty fast. And I swear, I don't know where they made them. They don't make them anywhere that uses hard water. I swear, those tests must come back positive just for them because they don't anywhere else. In property, they get so many buildup right around the joints that I would always try to upgrade to something that has a little bit more, stainless steel that's going to be able to resist a lot more of that stuff. So
hit it up front. Get the better. Yeah, put a little bit of money in if you want to avoid these problems.
And sometimes it's just an extra $40-$50. You're not spending like an extra $200. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just a little bit more when you're doing an install. And oftentimes I think people try to salvage it. They're like, nah, I can make this work still. Nah, I don't think you can. I think that once it starts eating away, that's a good sign that it's kind of going on its way out, Yeah. If it's really noticeable, chances are you should just replace it and try that.
It's a Titanic at that point. Move on.
Yeah. You don't want to be Leonardo, Yeah.
You definitely don't. And we've seen his trajectory. So we can't save them all. But you have really empowered millions of people with compassionate home repair tips. And I just want to shout out a Megan H, who said you saved her life as a new mom and what they're working on. So shout out to Megan H. Do you, Mercury, have a favorite success story from someone who's followed your tips?
Oh my God, I don't want to pick and choose. I don't think that's fair.
One
it's
of
like
your
asking me about my children.
Yes, my 30 million children.
Yeah, it's like asking me which one of my cats I like more, It's Nitro. I like Nitro more. But all that being said, I mean, to be honest, when I went on the largest book tour in North America last year, we did 54 cities across the country in 4 months. An absolutely insane thing that we did for my book, Safe and Sound, A Renter's Friendly Guide to Home Repair. And when we did that, we met like 20,000 people on this book tour. And the amount of people who would tell me more about the impact I had on their children and over the amount of repairs that they had. I think that's the thing that sticks with me the most. I love repairs. I love when people tell me, I fixed this because of you, I fixed this because of you, I fixed that because of you. But the thing that will stay in my head forever is seeing trans kids, especially trans girls, come up to me and tell me how much that I helped them. When their family says, you helped us fix our family, you helped us rethink about how we think about our family. I think that's the best repair in the world. Nuts and bolts, great. I love that stuff. But an emotional repair, that's pretty cool too. I'll take that.
It's so powerful. And I wanted to ask you about that and how you think about this role and stepping into this role of advocacy through this. Like, why do you think that you're able to have that sort of impact in this role specifically?
I like to call myself a gateway queer. My content isn't necessarily 100% about me being a trans woman. My content is about fixing stuff. So people who follow me aren't always the folks who might fully understand every single nuance about the queer experience, right? They might not understand the difference between, a trans woman or a drag queen. And I hear that a lot, right? So I think that it is important to understand that my proximity to that kind of like conservative world that I'm so out of is closer than it is for other queer people. And because of that, I think sometimes it opens me up to have these incredible conversations and these incredible moments online. There's been multiple times over the last 3.5 years of my career where I have encountered people who started hating me, but then for whatever reason fell in love with me. There was a person who doxed me on the internet, which is, dropping your address and all that terrible thing a couple of years ago. And he wrote this scathing thing about me in an email, and just terrible, awful things, that I wasn't a real trans woman. And I just responded with love. I told him that, I thought what he was doing was inappropriate and he doesn't get to decide what transness is. And I lead with compassion. And I don't know why you decided to lead with such hate. And 2 years go by, don't hear from him at all. I get a message from him, and it was this beautiful written message saying how much he really thought about what I said, and he felt terrible what he said, and he was voting for Trump, but then he decided to no longer support Trump because of the things I said, and that it really mattered to him that I was able to stand up against him in those moments of time. And I think about that all the time. It's not my responsibility to change every single person in America. That isn't going to happen, and it isn't realistic. But it is my responsibility to stick to my morals, my values. And if I do that, and I'm strong and firm enough in those morals and values, then I'm unshakable. And if I'm unshakable against adversity, some people who are shaken by adversity might see that and go, you know what? I can have this very different view on things if I just pay attention, relax, and listen a little bit.
I can't even imagine what that would feel like to have that sort of person come back into your life and to share those sort of changes that they over time, really, that your words had an impact.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's so rough about it. I think that, when I went to VidCon this past weekend and I met all these amazing content creators, and a lot of these content creators have such a different view on trolls than I do. And I think that a lot of it is because I grew up as a Christian. I grew up as a very I wanted to be a priest. I was a Catholic actually, and I wanted to be a priest, and I wanted to be very headstrong in these beliefs. And I was very I was homophobic. I was transphobic. I had these internalized hatreds about myself. And I guarantee that if I had the internet like their internet is now in my early 20s and in my late teens, I would have 100% been an awful troll. I can almost guarantee it because I was lonely. I was sad. I was looking for something. I had no community. I had no support. And I was lost. And I sometimes read these troll comments and all I see is just a lost little boy. I see a lost little boy who doesn't really know what to do and has no friends. And the only way they could find friends was to be, a rude person on the internet. And often
superior in their point of view.
Yes. And often they're bored. If you push back on them and you really get to talk to them, you'll find out that often they're trolling right-wing people and left-wing people just as much. And they don't really care. They don't believe half the things that they're saying. They're just saying things because they want a reaction out of someone, because the reaction they get from anybody is better than the reaction they don't get from anybody. And often they didn't even get love growing up as a kid. So all they want is just some type of rise from somebody. And the easiest way to do that is to frown. And smile takes more muscles. So that's why they do it.
It's so true. I was really thinking about some of the stuff that you're sharing, how hurt people. And I've also now heard healed people heal people. And I'm really seeing how much, how much more similar you are to Fred Rogers than we can, even say. But as someone who clearly has a hold of your own healing, what has this work done to empower you? Because you're clearly empowering others.
I think that it has given back my voice. I think that when I transitioned about 6 years ago, I was afraid to tell anyone who I worked with. I worked in this industry for, 12 years before I came out. And I was very I was so scared. I ran a weekly burlesque show here in tropical Madison, Wisconsin called 5 Star Tees every Friday night, and we had amazing performers from all over the world who would travel here and do shows. It was a great way for them to do a show in between Chicago and Minneapolis. And we would do a show at 5 Nightclub. And it was just this wonderful experience. But I would do that show on a Friday night. And then by Monday morning, I was back in my overalls, plunging someone's toilet. And that dichotomy, that back and forth of being in full face and full drag and in beautiful rhinestones and living in this big, bold world, and then being so afraid to take up any space in any type of masculine trade was very difficult. I got to be myself in front of 800 people sometimes, when I did massive shows around the country. But then when I would work in someone's apartment, I was as small as a little mouse. And I think about that a lot, about why. Why does that do that? Well, it's because I had confidence as a performer. I knew my place as a performer. I knew how big I could get and how small I could get and how high I could jump and how low I could bend. I could do all the things, and I knew I was talented, and I trusted my skills. And I was told I was good. When I was doing maintenance, I was never told it was good. I was so afraid to hold a wrench, so afraid to hold an impact driver. I was afraid to take up space. I was afraid to give the knowledge I had. Even though I had all the certifications, I had all the experience, and I had the knowledge, it did not matter because I was told over and over and over again I was lesser than, in subtle ways. Sometimes it wasn't people screaming at me. Sometimes it was just people rolling their eyes when I spoke. Or sometimes it was people being making an offhand joke about me being the weird one. And that just eroded my confidence over time. And you wouldn't even notice. It's like a river forming. You don't see it happening until one day you open up your window and you got a big old crater in front of you. And that's what it was like. So when I started the internet stuff, when I started doing all this stuff as a trans handyman, I didn't have any confidence. And then I started talking, and I saw for the first time that the words I was saying, the words I was so afraid of saying in a room full of men, was actually intelligence. It was actually informed opinions. It was actually experienced wisdom that I could give to people, and people wanted to hear it. They wanted to hear from someone who spoke a little bit differently and spoke with a trauma-informed intelligence, and that's how it all happened.
Mercury!
That's the reaction I get all the time. Whenever I get a little heavy, someone always going to be like, I love you. I'm going to go cry.
No, I'm not crying. I'm smiling. I'm glowing. And I mean, holy smokes. I mean, that message is so powerful. And I'm so incredibly excited and grateful that you are able to share your gift and like have that space to be your authentic self in both of the spaces that you love. And it's clearly resonating as we shared. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing the story and sharing the vulnerability. Like, that's huge. And everyone needs to hear what you just shared.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. And I think that one of the reasons why I listen to you guys as often as I possibly can is because I travel around the country so often now. I'm away from my own city constantly, it's very hard for me to sometimes read every single thing I'm supposed to read. So it's easier for me to listen than it is to read everything. Meet yourself where you're at. But that being said, it's been a wild ride. It's been an absolutely wild ride, and I'm happy that I'm a Madisonian. I'm happy that I get to call this home. I've been calling this home for almost 20 years now. And I just bought a house in Madison, and now I feel like a real Madison resident. So way to go!
Here we go! Mercury, thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye!
That was Mercury Stardust, aka the Trans Handyman, professional home repair technician and author of Safe and Sound, a renter's friendly guide to home repair. Mercury, if you're listening, we want you to know we love you and are sending all the love, light, and support your way. Thank you for all the energy you've given to our community, and we got you no matter what. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. If you enjoyed this show, why not share this episode with a new homeowner or someone who just moved into a new place? And remember, now is the time to become a CityCast Madison member. Become a CityCast Madison neighbor today. You only have a few days left to get that sweet mug we've been telling you about. And we only have a few days to hit our goal of 75 new neighbors. It's a big goal, but we're halfway there, and I know that together we can make it happen. Join us at membership.citycast.fm. Push us over the goal line. And as always, with your support, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take care of your home and your heart.